So what are some of the dramatic steps that you would take if your team absolutely sucked? I'm going to put you in this position, right? You are the owner of a club in maybe one of the former Yugoslavian states. Now, we're not talking about a league that's the Premier League level. You're an owner of a club that's in the top division of your country, but it's just kind of at a level of a professional team, right? We're not taking that whole giant, bold step to being superstars, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in wages and so on, right? Professional team. What would you do if that team was just really bad, way below expectation, losing basically every game? Well, you probably wouldn't do this, okay? The owner, and I'm going to make sure I say this right, the owner, make sure we've got this. The owner of Sloboda Tuzla, which is one of Bosnia and Herzegovina's top flight clubs. It's also, just by happenstance, one of the oldest clubs in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It was founded right after World War I, 1919. Well, the owner, basically, after 17 matches, and I think it's 2 points. Yeah, 17 matches and 2 points, sacked the entire team. There's the Sun article. He fired every single player on the team. Now I have so many questions. All right, and I've read every article I can find on this particular topic, and I have so many questions. First being, how is this possible? How is it possible to have contracts with all of the players, every single one of the players, and have some way to just cancel those contracts? Now, I know as somebody that is around the world of football, right, making the documentary series Hidden Grounds or anywhere else, right, that there is an issue in the game, kind of an epidemic in the game of players not necessarily getting paid or not getting paid on time because money is always so strapped around all of these clubs. But how is it possible to just release everyone, especially when you factor in the fact that the club is apparently in financial hardship? I would imagine the quickest way to get to maximum financial hardship is to have to pay out all of your contracts instantly. So I know that's not what was happening, right? That's probably your first big question. How do you just go into the locker room and tell everybody that they're not going to be playing here anymore, which is apparently what the guy did, right? But the guy that actually did this was some guy named Husic. Let me see if I can find his name. Asmir Husic. He's the club's president. The harder part was telling the players that they are no longer a part of Sloboda, and that's what we did. The easier part was that there are no games next week that we shouldn't think about. We weren't able to score a goal, let alone win a few points. I had to go out in front of the guys and tell them everything about the situation as it is. They were going into what was essentially the winter break, right? So there are a couple of qualifying factors that are going to make this make a little bit more sense to you. One, they're going into the winter break. So there's a lot of time once that winter break hits to reassess, figure out who you want to be a part of the team, and kind of build a new team to attack the season on the other side of the winter break. The second factor is the reason that he said this happened was not just because of the team's poor performance, but also to move towards rectifying the club's financial difficulties. Now, how might you ask, does this move you towards rectifying the club's financial difficulties? Well, it turns out, perhaps unsurprisingly, right, that this headline, right, sacks entire team and manager in bonkers bid to avoid relegation, right, from the Sun, again, unsurprisingly from the Sun here, it's misleading, right? It is not exactly what happened, because when you hear this guy, not hear him, I don't speak the language of Bosnia and Herzegovina, but when somebody translates it and puts it in a news article for me, and I can read what Asmir Husic is talking about, why he did this, it starts to make more sense, okay? The winter break obviously is there, but you have a situation where what they've essentially done is said that you can leave if you want to. They have gone in and said, when he says that we told them everything about the situation as it is, what he means is the club sucks. The team is bad. We're losing. We're probably going to get relegated, almost definitely, with 2 points from 17 matches, right? The season's over. we are screwed, and the club is not in a good financial position to be able to deal with this. And so we do not believe that that we are in a position where we're comfortable paying out everybody's wage until the end of the season. Now, obviously, legally, they are bound to do that. But the way that you can get around that is going to the players and saying, we want to let everybody go. We want to let everybody go. Right? You can go play somewhere else. We will not stand in your way at all. Your contract here is finished. Right? And if you want to leave, you want, like, here are terms for mutual termination. And he mentions that. He mentions the phrase mutual termination. In this other article, the team has been disbanded. In the coming days, I expect all contracts to be mutually terminated, because he's expressed to the team what's happening. And he expects, as part of a mutual termination, there to essentially be a reduced buyout on these contracts instead of having to pay out the full wage, which this guy clearly believes would be very detrimental to the club. And in fact, he says that people that were running the club before him handed out bad contracts, big contracts to players that maybe weren't worth it or something, that have put the club clearly in a bad position on the field, in a bad position on the balance sheet as well. But they're not actually getting rid of all the players. They're just hoping for a mutual termination and a renegotiated contract if the players would like to stay. The renegotiated contract that would presumably allow those players to cost the club less money overall, but allow them to keep playing in the Bosnian First Division if that's what they want. They've taken the situation and they've put the ball in the players' court and they've said, look, we're in an untenable spot. The club is in a terrible financial situation, and we're basically just going to let all of you guys go. And I would imagine, given the amount of money they're making in the Bosnian First Division, which is not Premier League money, because if you're in the Premier League, you're under a contract that's paying you $200,000 a week, right? You're just going to tell them to fuck off and keep taking the money, right? But in Bosnia and Herzegovina, you're probably not making that sort of generational wealth, and you probably have the opportunity to go somewhere else and play. And honestly, if you're on a team that's gotten 2 points out of the first 17 matches, there are a lot of players that would love to maybe even take a bit of a pay cut and go play somewhere else so they don't have to be in that environment anymore. This was probably not entirely unwelcome for a few of the guys in that dressing room, giving them the opportunity to, the freedom to go out and make that move. Because the first time I saw this was the first point that I made in this video, where I went, how is that even possible? That had to have cost a ton of money. This is just some rich asshole that's come in and stormed into the dressing room and terminated everybody's contract and paid them out in full to try and build a new team. But actually, the more you deep it, this is kind of a last-ditch strategic effort to reposition the club to be in the next division below and still be financially viable. And I have to say, I don't think a lot of presidents or owners would have the guts to do this. Now, I realize it's possible that the way this played out ended up screwing over the players more than I think. And if that's true, you're contractually obligated to pay those players that contract. And if they really want to sit there and just take that paycheck to the end of their contract, they should have that option. If that option is not there, then something is wrong. But I don't understand Bosnian law or the rules of the Bosnian Herzegovina FA. So I'm assuming the situation played out, at least logically, it checks out for me that the situation played out the way that I was just describing it. Some players wanted to leave and just go get more money. They sign a small mutual termination fee and then they're off, right? And then other players, like I said, are coming back. And I quote, "We will talk to some players here. There are some contracts that were unacceptable, and that is why I thought everything should be terminated. We will make new contracts, which are not against the law. Everyone is told that they are free and that their contracts are up for termination. And after the termination, we will approach a number of players who wore the Sloboda jersey in the first part of the season with the new boss. We will try to make agreements that are more realistic than the current ones." So they're going to approach other players that were on the team. Maybe just the players that they wanted to keep, but they weren't able to keep on the contracts that they were on, and say, hey, this is what we can offer you if you want to stay. If not, here's the termination fee. If you want that, kind of negotiate that out, and then you go play wherever the hell you want. But you probably don't want to keep too many of those players because they've only scored 35. They've only scored 5 goals and allowed 36 goals up to this point in the season. And in case you were wondering, this happened in December, and the season has restarted. And they did lose their first match back. They now have played 18 matches, and they have 16 losses. So the whole rebuilding the team thing hasn't gone exactly according to plan, but a bold strategy. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, if you're able to guarantee the financial future and health of your club, which is over 100 years old, by doing something this batshit crazy, then do it. It might end up working out. Now, they said they were going to fight to stay in the division. It's a 12-team league. I don't know how the relegation works exactly, but the team above them is only on 7 points. So if they can put a team together that is good enough to actually be able to close the distance on that team, maybe just they can stay alive in this division and be much more financially sound. But at the very worst end of the whole spectrum, it seems like after this decision, they're not going to end up going bankrupt and the club is going to be folding because they have restructured everything. So as long as you can raise the floor of the bad things that are going to happen, then sure, sacking the entire team might not be the worst move.